everyone, what's up and welcome back to the garden. Today we're going to be taking a closer look at taking chrysanthemum cuttings. Now, in general, there are several types of chrysanthemums. In this video, we're going to talk about just basically two types. We have the kind of ornamental, kind of potted chrysanthemum, small chrysanthemum that you see in front of home improvement stores in the fall that you put out for decorations. And we're going to be talking about some florist mums that are going to be nice and tall, and we're going to be able to use them for cut flower arrangements. Taking cuttings from chrysanthemums is a great way to get more and more plants, obviously, for little or no cost. All you really need is a plant to do that from. Before we get started, it should be important to note that some varieties of chrysanthemum plants are patented and you should not propagate them, so be respectful of that. But getting right into it, to take chrysanthemum cuttings, all we're going to do is we're going to need either rooted cuttings that, are growing and are for our garden, to plant in our garden, or we're going to need chrysanthemum stools, is what they're called. That is the kind of plant material from old plants that we have saved either by overwintering, say in a basement, or that we have overwintered in our own gardens. So to save your chrysanthemum plants, it will vary depending upon what zone you're in and how hardy the chrysanthemum plant is. After the first frost and all the foliage has kind of died back, you can dig that up and store it much in the way that you store dahlia bulbs. I've had success doing that. Or if you live in a zone that is warm enough, you can simply leave it outside in the ground. That's what I've started doing here in zone 6B7 in Kentucky. I leave my chrysanthemums in the ground. I let them die back, add a little bit of mulch after the ground has frozen just to kind of keep things nice and consistent. Then in the spring, I remove that mulch and the plant starts growing new foliage. This is definitely one of those things that just depends on where you live. You might have to just kind of have a little bit of trial and error to figure out what works where you are. It really can vary even from one variety of chrysanthemum plant to another. So if I am going to take cuttings from stools, the first thing I am going to do is I am going to remove all of the dead plant material from the stool, with the exception of the stem down by the base of the plant. I also have an older video about this, about digging up the chrysanthemum stool out of the ground and placing it in a 2-liter bottle to help it get a jump start on the new growth. A lot of people might say, now why am I bothering to take chrysanthemum cuttings at all? Can I just let it bloom? Can I just let it keep growing? Honestly, I've never tried just letting it keep growing. I have read several places online though that the plants from the previous year will not grow as well. They won't bloom as well. I'm not sure as to why, but taking cuttings apparently is important to make sure that the plants put on their best blooms and make as many flowers as possible for our growing season. To take cuttings, what I like to do is I like to take a pair of garden snips and make a cut that's about maybe 4 inches long. When I make the cut, I want to make sure that I make a cut right underneath a set of leaves. To get this into soil, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove carefully most of the leaves that will be below the soil when I stick it into my plant tray. You want to make sure to leave a little bit of top growth. Again, you want to consider that moisture will be lost from that top growth, so not too many leaves. Usually I leave about 2 sets of leaves up there. Make sure we're not damaging the growing tip. All I'm going to do is I'm going to stick these cuttings into some moist potting soil. It's nothing fancy. You can also fill 2-liter bottles up with potting soil. To use those as a little bit of a greenhouse to help with the humidity and help with the rooting process. I personally am putting these trays into my low tunnel. That's why I'm not using the milk jugs or 2-liter bottles, because the low tunnel will help me with my humidity. Also, you can use a rooting hormone if you choose. I personally never ever use rooting hormones, and when it comes to things like chrysanthemum cuttings, I have nearly 100% success every single time with the cuttings. The same process can also be repeated with cuttings that have been rooted previously, say that you've purchased from another supplier. For example, I have my chrysanthemum cuttings for florist mums in this tray. Now, in general, one of the maintenance tasks of chrysanthemums is that you pinch out the top when it reaches a certain height so that it can branch and form more flowers. So basically, I pinch them a little bit early, and I use those pinchings to create more chrysanthemum plants to go in my garden. Between each cut, I do like to clean my garden snips just in case there are any viruses or funguses or anything going on. I'm not quite sure if there are viruses that affect chrysanthemums, but it's just a good garden habit for me to have personally, so I choose to do that. In general, I like to put the newly potted up chrysanthemum cuttings in kind of a shady place somewhere, one place where they will not get too much intense direct sun that will cause them to wilt, that will cause the rooting process to either fail or take much longer. I like to either put them in a shady place or make sure they're at least getting afternoon shade. I'm really going to make sure to pay attention and watch the trays. Make sure that those trays are not drying out. This means you might have to mist them depending upon your weather. Really just keeping an eye on those. Make sure that the moisture is nice and consistent. Usually here in my zone, it takes about 2 weeks for the chrysanthemum cuttings to begin to start forming their own roots and start growing on their own. To check and see if your chrysanthemums have started to root, you can kind of just gently tug on them, just nice and soft, very gently tug on them. If the cutting does not come right out of the soil, if there's a little bit of tension, you can basically assume that the roots have started to grow and that it has been successful. Overall, this method is insanely easy and it works great. It's seriously such an easy way to get more plants and make the most of your money and have a beautiful garden when fall finally arrives. That's really about it for this video. I hope that it was helpful. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions. I always try to help, always try to answer those as quickly as I can. Sometimes it takes a little while because I do work a lot. But I do appreciate you watching so much. If you're new to the channel and you like this video, be sure to subscribe. I would absolutely love to have you. We're making new videos all the time. Usually it's about growing cut flowers, but it could be about, growing vegetables or even some, DIY projects. You really never know what kind of video I'm going to make. So if you do like a little bit of surprise, be sure to hit the bell icon, hit subscribe, all that good stuff. We would love to have you. I hope that you guys are having such an amazing day, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye, guys.